Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to NDISCO'S Village Meeting Podcast, hosted by my very self, Dr. Maslin and M.OPARAOJI. How are you all doing today? Welcome. Today, we are venturing into yet another topic. Again, some of the topics that I share with you at this beginning of the year, mostly questions that come to me from my, I call them my babushkas, the young ones. Sometimes I call them the petri dishes if they are smaller. The questions that come from our offsprings, they have really funny questions, which are meaningful. I never promise them I have all the answers, but what I do is to try to attempt um, to answer or shed a light and also encourage them to go find out more by themselves or for themselves. And when I don't know, I don't know. I tell them I'm going to do some research or digging in. And I encourage them also to talk to some other adults. So without much ado, we're going to jump into this topic. A few of them ask, Auntie, when we are asked the question, who are you? Again, it depends on how it's asked. Who are you? Um, eh, Somebody wants to know who they are. And we'll talk more about the context where these questions are asked. And it makes me smile because different languages have different ways of asking the same question. Where when the English language is saying, who are you? The Igbo person is saying Iwonye, Ibonye, and these are mild way of asking those questions. But I can also share that in the tribe I come from, the Igbo tribe of Nigeria. Sometimes you don't even have a chance to ask somebody who they are. Who are you? They are first to tell you who they are, and they say Makwonyambo. Makwonyambo, do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? It's always another case because I think it's a cultural thing or it's a humility thing. So many people have different ways of asking the same question. Um, in the case of the Yoruba will ask you, Tani, who are you? Or Tani, who are you? As against um, the Hausa asking you, Kaiwanene, and excuse my language because I don't speak most of these ones fluently. The French may ask you, Qui êtes-vous? you know, Kiedvu in the way of, asking. And some of you who know that I've dabbled into Turkish language were like, Sen Kimsin, Kimisin, Ken Kimisin, and Sen Kimisin. And I am sorry I'm butchering some of these, but um, it's just to showcase to you, and I'm sorry if I don't get into every language, is to show that it's an important question. It is a very important question to ask. And so let's look into it. And I tell the young ones that it's okay. The question is a very important one. So don't shy away from it. Just make sure that you are actually um, answering that the way it comes. So the question is always, who are you? And as we go into the settings, what we're going to share is how one approaches such a question when it comes to you. Remember, we're dealing with culture and African here or Africans, both in diaspora and at homestead. So the question is bound to come from every angle or any angle that or where you find yourself. Okay. So it is a life, one of life's most profound questions, actually, when somebody asks you who you are. But you have to bear in mind that it depends on who is asking, how the question is being asked, and the context, the setting. So, somebody will like, who are you? And the tonation will ask whether the person is asking in a derogatory way, in a negative way, or in a positive way as to know who you are. Again, who is asking that? And it could be a superior, it could be somebody, junior, it could be your boss, it could be a colleague, and it could be actually somebody you're meeting for the first time, trying to know who you are. So one of the things that we get to note that I keep sharing with the young ones is that you never have second, third, fourth chances to make the first impression. In corporate, there's something we call elevator pitch or elevator speech. And that is when you have just a window of 3 seconds to 1 minute or even less to introduce yourself. And it's just another way of saying, who are you? And you meet maybe your CEO in an elevator or somebody who you want to make a first impression to, and you meet them in a place where there are so many people waiting for this person's attention. How do you go about just making your impression? So this is important. This question is important. So when asked, who are you? Some major schools of thought suggest shifting the focus from your labels. And again, I go back to my Igbo culture, in Nigeria at least. And I'm sticking to my culture where people are like, I am Professor, Doctor, um, Chief, um, barrister, engineer. They put every title in the word Okenze, chief, high chief, and all that. That you lose track of everything else. So instead of just labeling with your name, your job, of course, your name is important. People remember you by their name. But how long do you just hang on to your name and the titles that go with that? That's the issue. The job, the history, that's a long one. Um, Underlying nature of your existence. So we want something to take away. If I met you for the first time, how do I remember you again? How do you make that impression? Okay. So I looked at some of the schools of thought. One stood out of the rest. Dr. Grace Lee shared that there are 3 ways to approach such a question of who are you? And she said something to the effect that your career, your profession, it's important to mention, briefly as you go. And it takes just one sentence. If, for example, if you're a content creator, you say that. If you are a somebody who you're a carpenter, you say that. You're a farmer, you say that. Your name, I'm a farmer. And she also says, um, you talk about ontological, you describe yourself ontologically. What does that mean? Ontology is the study of nature, and nature is guided by the 7 areas of life: your vocation, family, spiritual aspect, physical fitness, health, wellness, emotional and mental, and finances. Say, for example, if you chose to go family or familial, you could say, I'm a mother, I'm an uncle, okay, I'm a father, I am a son, all that. If you want to go by the way of physical fitness to tell somebody who you are, I'm an athlete, I'm a musician. Sorry, yeah, that could in an aspect of whatever your vocation is. Your vocation would say you're a musician, but you could also say in the way of physical fitness, I'm a swimmer. Okay, and it goes on and on in that aspect. Um, Take the moment to think about some of those areas of life where you can mention who you are. And if you get to the aspect of association, it's associative by nature, and that is your role and your responsibility. What do you do? What is it that you're responsible for? I do this. I play the piano. I help people manage their finances. I teach people how to grow corn. I do fishery. What is your role and what is your responsibility? So Grace is saying that we should endeavor um, to bring all the three aspects together. Include them when you're introducing yourself or when somebody asks you who you are. Try to bring them together. And it will be included in all of the defining moments that I talked about. It's not that difficult. You got to just choose because we are so many things than one thing. And to try to all pack them in one instance of you meeting somebody for the first time or somebody trying to get to know you, you may not have 5 to 10 minutes to, to do that. Think about your resume where you have 10, some people have more than 2 pages. Nobody's going to give you that time of the day to say who you are. It's always good to share some good aspects of you, your strength. Oh, I smile a lot, or I love to dance, or something that is on the lighter side, or, I really love to read books. You can also introduce a weakness, and that sometimes people put it in a joke. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce names, or I'm really bad at doing this or that. It goes by, it makes you human. The humility comes up. Last but not the least is the one that should be added that doesn't come up most of the time, and that is what you hope to become. I picked this up when I don't know how many of you have read Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. And I just finished watching the Netflix aspect of Becoming. And you could pick up a whole lot. The way she describes herself, and I'm encouraging you to watch that, all the young ones, um, as to the girl from the south side of Chicago. That was what she was before she became a lawyer. And she's still that the girl from the south side. But then she kept piling on that until she became the first lady. And now, when she was being interviewed as to what next, she's thinking of, well, I want to devote my life to helping the young girls realize that their dreams can come true. You could hear her, saying what she hopes to become or what she became when she was dared by someone when she wanted to get into Princeton. And somebody told her, you can't, you're not the material for that. And that reminds most of us when in a very big, one of the high universities in the Midwest, where we went to school, and this French lady was studying French then, told me, what are you doing in a 5,000 level class? I don't think you're supposed to be here. Well, I'm a Nigerian. I'm a Black woman. I showed her. I said, if there's nothing else I need to study, I put everything aside and made sure I proved her wrong. And when you have an A in such, it becomes the best A you can ever have to prove people wrong. And that was what Michelle Obama was sharing. And that is the part of who you are. Who are you doesn't mean just who you are now. You put a piece of who you were. Who you are now actually is the one that sells you moving forward. What am I going to, what am I doing now? Your role and responsibility. And then what are your aspirations? What do I want to become? What am I approaching? What am I working towards? Because nobody is static. We are dynamic. We move from one point to the other. And so to curtail yourself to just telling people who you were, in place of telling people where you are now and where you are going, it should be the circle. And so I'm hoping that with this, we will all be able to know what we can um, and do and what we cannot do in this instance, what we are capable of doing and what we are not capable of doing. So when you ask the question, who are you? Of course, if it's asked in a derogatory way, you take your time to be able to answer that. And it depends all on your attitude towards that. It might be a good time to either stop the conversation or get out of there, or find a way to really let them know who you are in a good way. Okay. Um, so um, series 3, episode 3, was mostly to talk about this question that came to me. At the end, it all depends on you um, presenting yourself, presenting yourself influentially, presenting yourself persuasively and strongly to whoever is in front of you asking you that question. If it is in an interview, you made your point. You gave, a nutshell of who you are and what you're bringing to the table. If you are talking to a friend or somebody, a potential friend, they now have an idea of who they are meeting or running away from or should run away from. And if it's an existing, corporate body or senior person, they remember you when there is something that needs your attention that they will benefit from. So if it's in your community, don't take too long to tell. People already know you, but they want you to, by yourself, highlight what it is that is going to be making sense to them. At this point, we're going to call it a day. And this is where I say thank you for listening. I promise you these will be short versions. And if any questions come from these, I will surely come back to, share what the young ones think about it. Okay. Thank you so much. And remember the spirit of Ubuntu. I am because you are. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Dr. Maslin and NDISCO'S, your hostess. A host, as some people say. Bye-bye.